For this last video, we're going to take the bits and pieces that we've learned in our first unit on descriptive statistics and put them together in a neat little package. Generally, when we're doing descriptive statistics, our goal is to describe a distribution of data or compare two distributions of data. And as statisticians, when we're asked to do that, we generally look at four things. And to help us remember, we're going to use the shortcut SOCS. When you're asked to describe, remember to use your SOCS. SOCS. And that stands for shape, outliers, center, and spread. So let's break down those pieces really quick. If I want to describe the shape of a distribution, the very first thing I'm going to do is look at my graph. Right? Construct a graph appropriate to the type of data I have. Histogram, dot plot, something of that nature. Yeah. And then you're going to identify two things. How many peaks do you see in the data? Does it have one peak? Is it unimodal? Does it have two peaks? Is it bimodal? Identify the number of peaks you see. And then identify it as symmetric or skewed. Does the graph fold about its midpoint to create two perfect mirror images? Or is my peak or the bulk of the data off to one side with a long tail on the other? Symmetric or skewed. The next step is outliers, and generally at this stage, you're going to look at your graph for visual outliers. At this stage, it's enough to notice that we might potentially have outliers. We don't really need to test for them unless you're explicitly asked to. Once we've described our graph by looking at its shape and whether there are any data points that don't seem to fit the pattern, we're going to describe its center and its spread. And for center and spread, I'm going to choose center and spread based on my answer to the shape question. If my graph is approximately symmetric, I'm going to use the mean as my measure of center, and I'm going to use the standard deviation as my measure of spread, and I'm going to discuss them. What is my mean? Is the standard deviation large or small? Is the data spread out or clustered about the mean really closely? If my data is skewed, there's the presence of extreme values, or that peak is noticeably off-center, I'm going to use the median as my measure of center, and I'm going to use the IQR as my measure of spread. And we're doing it because these two values are resistant to outliers. If I could spell. Resistant. Meaning one extreme data point being added or removed to the data set is not going to change those two measures very much. Those measures care about location and not about actual data values. Whereas the mean and standard deviation look at the value of every single data point. So the inclusion of one outlier is going to cause those measures to move. That makes us unhappy as statisticians. So we only use the mean and standard deviation for nice, pretty symmetric graphs that don't have noticeable outliers. We use the median and IQR for graphs that are skewed, that have noticeable outliers in their graph. When you're describing distributions, we typically do all of this using a paragraph, a sentence or two to address the shape, then the outliers, and then a discussion about my center and my measure of spread and what they mean in terms of my graph and the data set. All right, so we are officially done with descriptive statistics. If you have any questions on anything from week 1, I'm going to have official office hours on Thursday from 7 to 8 and by appointment. Otherwise, you can send me a question anytime via email. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I will see you in the discussion boards.